Guys, I say it all the time, but this is going to be an exciting conversation today. We have Heid, one of the creators of Summit Midwest Drags. Y'all, we're going to talk all things drag and drive. So I think we just get right into it. You guys have already heard the intro. Let's not even worry about any of that. Heid, why don't you introduce yourself to folks, tell everybody kind of who you are, and we're obviously going to tell stories about how and why drag and drive events are the best events for anyone that is into cars.
Absolutely. Yeah, my name is Heid, and I am the founder of Summit Racing Midwest Drags. We were about the third drag and drive event to come onto the scene. You know, you had the prestigious and infamous Hot Rod Drag Week that was started in 2005 by David Freiberger, and then Rocky Mountain Race Week came on out sometime maybe 13 or 14, and then Summit Racing Midwest Drags was picked up in 2018, and we did our first show in 2019.
Man, that's great. It's the cool thing about the drag and drive stuff that we've seen over the last few years is that there's obviously more events, which kind of led us into the conversation beforehand, before this with you. And then I'm excited to hear all the stuff, because you are really daily in the drag and drive culture. Like you live it. Obviously putting on an event is a big deal, but then, you start talking about like 2005 Hot Rod Drag Week. And then, I think 14 was the first year for Matt. I think he went on 14 Drag Week and then decided, hey, I want something closer to home. And then we end up with, Rocky Mountain Race Week. And then obviously now a 2.0, for the Rocky Mountain team, they call it Race Week. And then Midwest Drags. Dude, there are so many events coming up, and we talked about that a little bit on our phone call the other day, but let's tell a little bit of backstory for you. You've been on a few of these. Obviously, you don't usually put one together if you hadn't done one. When was your first drag and drive?
Well, it's really a funny story, because I never really intended to create a drag and drive. I actually wanted to have a poker run, and it was going to be a 3-day deal, and it was going to have payouts and stuff. And then when the Gaming Commission found out what we were going to do, they didn't tell me that I couldn't do it, but they recommended that I don't. So with that, then I basically just said, well, let's just create another drag and drive event. And it was a small one, a 3 or 4 day one as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I was lucky enough to get Summit Racing's attention. They signed on up, and, just kind of took off from there. But you're right. I mean, I am a full-time promoter. I do the Summit Racing Midwest Drags. We've got another event now that has kind of made full circle, where we're doing with AutoCross cars. And that's called Summit Racing AutoCross Week, presented by UMI Performance. And then also I assist with the 3 C10 national shows. So there's 5 shows a year that we actually produce, as well as attending shows in a promotional manner.
Wow, dude, you're a busy guy.
Yeah, because as soon as I'm done with this phone call, we're going to load on up 2 cars, and we're heading on up to Detroit for the Detroit Autorama. We've got 2 cars. We've got Brian Havlic's 55 Chevy with his trailer. Completely fresh off of sick week. I don't even know that he's taken all the road grime or sand off of it yet. And that's going to be in one corner of the Summit booth. And then in the other corner of the Summit booth, we're going to have Jesse Vaughn's truck from Level 7, who builds square bodies for autocross. So half of the Summit Racing booth at the Detroit Autorama is going to have 2 of my vehicles, promoting the Summit Racing Midwest Drags, presented by Mickey Thompson Tires. And then in the other corner is going to be Summit Racing Autocross Week, presented by UMI Performance. So we're moving.
Dude, that's awesome. The coolest part about, I think about, once people realized you can, let's beat on stuff for a couple days in a row. Like the Autocross Week. I mean, other than, I guess, One Lap of America really doesn't, that's not even the same kind of deal. Are you guys the only autocross?
No. And this is what I'm talking about, makes a full circle. Okay.
Yeah.
Freiberger, when he created Drag Week in 2005, he said he was inspired based off One Lap of America. Mm-hmm. And he got the idea, well, instead of we turn left and right, how about we just go in a straight line? That was the birth of Drag Week, based off of that. And now here we are 19 years later on, And Summit Racing basically says, they told me when we were renegotiating after my 3-year contract expired and they re-signed for another, they also then said at the conclusion of that meeting, they said, hey, how cool would it be if we had an event that was run exactly like the Midwest Drags, but we just do it with autocross cars? That was the birth of Autocross Week.
That is too cool, man.
Yeah.
So I didn't even know that about you. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Sorry, I didn't do all the backwards research. We,
that's all right.
I like.
That's all right. I don't like to be in the public light, but I mean, to answer your question, yeah, we've kind of made full circle, all based off of one lap of America and how it inspired Freiberger, how it's inspiring everybody else, and then we're making full circle. And that's, you asked earlier, you said, what's the thing that why Drag and Drive is exploding like it is? There's a couple things, but the biggest thing is because it's inspiring. People are motivated. They come on out. They get excited to see that 3rd-gen Camaro that they used to own 5 years ago that they sold that's running in the 8s. They get inspired and they go home and they open on up the Summit catalog, and they can be involved. And if you really want to know where the credit and the basis for this, I think, comes from, I think there's 2 things. I think when Chevrolet in 2000 came on out with the LS platform, that's number 1. And number 2 is the turbo. Because without those 2 factors, Drag and Drive would basically be the mass majority of 10, 11, 12, and 13-second cars.
I 100% agree with you, because now you can take, a perfect example, Mike Corsilli, who we had on last week, his truck, I mean, he's got a regular cab, short bed, cat eye, 05 truck with a ring-gapped 6-liter, good cam, good turbo, good trans, runs 960s. He drives it as often as he can. I mean, that would have been unheard of, 8, 10, 15 years ago, because of, you just you couldn't put that kind of power down with a, small block Ford, or at that point you really couldn't with a, 2 or 3 valve Ford motor.
Right. That's right.
You could, it just cost you a whole lot of money, and everybody just kept leaning on these things and realized, hey, and Holly coming out with all the electronics and HP tuners helping with all the ECU stuff. I mean, it's a great time to be a hot rodder for sure.
With the explosion of Drag and Drive, I really have to believe that this is what it must have felt like back in the late 60s, early 70s, when drag racing was just exploding. Because back then you had daily driving cars that if you broke, you better fix it because it's what you were going to drive to work on Monday. Yes. I think it's made full circle. In the 80s, we got away from all of that, because in the 80s, if you wanted to have a sign that you got a fast car, well, you put it on the trailer on your way to the track. Yeah. But nowadays with Drag and Drive, if your car's on the trailer, it's a sign you broke and you're out of competition.
That's right. That's exactly right. And you got guys like Rich Guido. I mean, dude drives from Canada, towing his trailer in his race car, races all week, runs 8s, and then drives it back home 7,000-mile round trip.
If you don't know why they call him the Canadian Chuck Norris, you gotta do some research on this guy, because he is a gorilla. He is an Iron Man. He is a man of men, because we met again. A lot of us went down there to Sick Week just last month. Mm-hmm. And he was there. And keep in mind, he drives that thing from Alberta, Canada. So it was like 3,200 miles just to get to Bradenton, Florida. And he'd already been on the road. You're not going to do that in a 2-day trip. He'd already been on the road, 5, 6, 7 days to be able to make it down there.
Yeah, it was crazy. And he had Kyle with Boosted Lifestyle, documenting all of it. And so, every day I would get up and watch Kyle's video and just be like, these guys are crazy. I mean, they were 3 deep in a car driving that far. Yeah. And, really, like, Rich doesn't own a truck and trailer, but there was a guy that came from the Yukon that was over by Alaska that came for Sick Week. I mean, Drag and Drive just brings out, I think, the want to in folks. You're talking about being inspiring. I always hearken it back to Two Lane Blacktop. I think that it would be interesting to see the purchases of that movie in the last 3 years compared to the previous 20.
It's funny. It's funny that you mentioned that, because on our Facebook group, which is literally Drag and Drive, our backdrop on there is of that 55, and the scene is them driving across that bridge. And then we've got the tagline on there that says Drag and Drive, because those guys were doing Drag and Drive 40 years before Drag Week.
Yeah.
I mean, they were the original guys. They didn't have a trailer. They hauled it on out and stuffed the tires in the back of the trunk, carried a couple tools. Remember one of those, the scenes in there where they're running low on cash. And so we put up the tools for $300 in cash. I mean,
Yep.
we're talking about scraping it together.
Yeah, that's literally what a drag week or drag and drive event is like.
Yeah, it is. Richard Guido, when he came on down there, I think him competing in Sick Week was probably the easiest part of his track, because it was only 800 miles compared to the 6,000 round trip to go back to Canada.
That's exactly right. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, the thing about drag and drive is you are around like-minded people that literally emotionally and physically want you to finish the week.
Mm-hmm.
More,
Right.
morale. They want the morale to finish the week. They have it and they carry it, but once you get away from that, like for Rich, for sure, you get in the middle of Nebraska and throw a wheel bearing in the 65 GTO on the side of the road, or you break your control arm. He had that happen, or broke the bolt or something like that. I mean, now you're in the generosity of the general public. Now you may struggle a little bit,
Right. Who don't quite necessarily understand why he's doing what he's doing, but they are enamored by it.
Yeah. Yeah, certainly. And I think the drag and drive spirit has, begun to take hold a little bit of the country. And again, that's why we created Drag Drive Repeat, because we were running so much stuff under our Narcoleptic Customs YouTube and Facebook and Instagram that I felt bad for all of our followers there. So I'm like, look, drag and drive is my new life. I love this lifestyle. I love driving the cars. I love building stuff that is going to be driven. And, so that's why we created this. I mean, that's why we're here. That's why, it's like how long till the April event that we host, that's why you and I started talking in the beginning. And then, how long till Midwest Drags? How long till Hot Rod Drag Week? How long? I'm counting down the days now, where before it was like, okay, how long till this car show? How long till that car show? Now it's drag and drive takes over my life.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Drag and drive is for the guy who loves driving his car. That's the common thing. If you can't stand to be inside that car, then drag and drive is not for you. If you want to drive your car, you want to be on the road, you want to be with like-minded people and see some cool stuff that you're not going to see. And there's no other reason why you would have ever met these people or even been at that track, except because it was a drag and drive event. That's what makes it killer.
Yeah, 100%. Before drag and drives took over, we hosted a charity streetcar shootout at Mocan once a year. It was in October, late September, early October. And that was the only time I went to the track. Now we did Sick Week for 2022. So I was at, 4 different tracks in Florida. We're doing, Race Week. We're doing 2.0 in September. And so I'll be at 4 different racetracks then. And then we're trying to hit the last 2 days of Drag Week just for the content. So I'll be at another 2 tracks then. And I would have never been at those tracks if it had not been for Drag and Drive.
Yeah. So what's the count on that? About 20 different tracks this year?
Yes, we'll see.
I mean, if you average 4 to 5 tracks per event, you're going to go to 4 or 5 events. So that's basically going to be about 20 tracks per year.
Yeah. And again, just like you were saying, you'd have no reason to drive to, like I would have no reason to drive to Memphis to make passes, or Enos, Texas to make passes, just to go on a Saturday afternoon, which is about 6 hours from me. I wouldn't do that, but because of Drag and Drive, I'm going to go and do that and make those memories.
Yep, that's exactly what it's right. Bailey calls Sick Week an adventure. We call ours an experience.
Yeah,
because it absolutely is. I mean, the important thing to know to the new people that are joining us is this isn't a drag race. This isn't like your Saturday bracket or your weekend or your Friday night test and tune. This literally is an experience. I mean, you're spending vacation time, you're spending vacation money, and for the younger guys who have young families at home, they've got to sell it to their spouse that they're going to go on out and hang out with their buddies for a week while she stays at home and is responsible. So the memories have got to equal the financial expense. And that's one of the reasons why at the Midwest Drags, we are so blessed to be in the motorsports capital of the world that all of our route stops are always motorsports related.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, we went to John Force Racing. We've been to J&A Auto. We've been to Scott Rods, who had a very, very nice spread for us, all catered with a band and stuff.
Wow.
And so So it's a party and it's an experience. It's not just the racing at the track. It's everything that's in between. And that's what people are signing on up for, is that experience. And so, one of the things that also that we're doing this year for the Midwest Drags is after we leave Edgewater, which is our host track, we're going to be going to Brownsburg, Indiana, and we're going to be visiting Walt Herr. Now, Walt Herr was Larry Dixon's clutch guy in the 90s when it was either Dixon or Schumacher who was always winning. That's Walt Herr. He was responsible for getting that horsepower into the ground. So we're going to be stopping off at his shop. Then we're going to go on up to Morocco, Indiana, and we're going to race at US 41. Then we're going to come across and we're going to stop off at Callie's Crankshaft. We're going to race at Dragway 42. We're going to come on down and we're going to visit Profiler Cylinder Heads. And Mike puts out a very nice display. Looks like a miniature PRI show. And then Friday morning, I'm going to send everybody 20 miles down the street from Edgewater Motorsports Park to Tin Soldiers Race Cars. And then we'll come back. Lanes will open at 3:30, and we'll race AFCO Friday Night Lights at Edgewater, and then immediately go into the Molly Motorsports Award ceremony. So all of that, it's not just making the passes. You're not signing on up just to go make passes. You're signing up for an overall experience.
Yeah, 100% experience, because as we talked in the live streams from last week and the week before, you're talking about you're getting 5 and 6 passes during the week. Now, I don't know how many you get on Midwest Drags. What's your car count on Midwest Drags?
Well, we limit it to 300 as well, but we also limit our SMEs to only 32 cars. So that'll, and we have a 10.5 barrier to be able to get into the Midwest Drag. So we focus on some very, very fast cars. And in a way to be able to make that possible, because 2 hits are required. So it's not a one and done. 2 hits are required per day. Our class winners are an average of 8. And how we achieve that is because we have no class calls and we have a 750 express lane. So when you've got that visual of that funny car hoop, that puts you in lane number 1. And if they like the track and they're ready to go, they go on up there and they make their hit. And then we go to lanes 2 and 3, and then 4 and 5. And then we go back again. So the lanes are never, ever not moving, and that's the reason.
Wow. That makes me want to build something fast. I'll just tell you right now.
Hey, just go get yourself a Fox, get yourself an LS and the smallest 88 turbo that you can find, less than $10,000, and you're in the 8s.
Yeah. 100%. So, I don't know if you follow Sloppy Mechanics, but Matt Happel built a, 8-second car for, under $9,000. That's pretty awesome. I don't know if anybody else could do that, but hey, he did it, and that's awesome.
It's not terribly expensive to go super, super fast anymore. And that's why I say, you want to give credit to the explosion of this drag and drive. It's good to see LS platform and the turbo, because the rest of this is just, we could dream this all up and say, hey, let's go on out there and take our street cars. But like I say, they just be 10, 11, 12, 13 second cars, because you have still high lift cams. So you're always watching your valve train. But with turbo cars, it eliminates all that, makes them far more reliable and keeps the drivability there.
Yeah, definitely. The valve train technology for turbo stuff has come, just anything has come so far in the last 10 years. But yeah, you're right. If you're cramming air in one, you don't have to, the cam doesn't have to make the air, So we've had Billy Godbold on before, and that's exactly what he was talking about, was just the livability of valve train for boosted vehicles, and especially LS stuff. It's amazing. And trans stuff has come a long way, which was, I feel like a limiting factor for a lot of stuff. If you didn't run a Glide or a Turbo 400 that had all the best parts in it, now with the technology, with the electronics, you can bring that stuff in higher in the RPM range. You can help, everything live a lot longer. And again, just like you said, helps everything go down the track and get between stuff. So, with you having 2 passes at each track, you're going to make at least 8 passes during the week.
You got to turn in 8 time slips.
Yeah.
Yes.
So think about that, right? You're in the lanes, let's say an hour at the most, right? Because it sounds like you guys move through stuff pretty good. But let's say an hour. So 8 passes, you're out of 4 or 5 days of this experience of a drag and drive. You're only spending about 8 hours in doing the drag racing. You got change over the car, you got things like that. Like, are you guys, radial or slick only racing as well, or do you do a tire?
No DOT tire, or no hard tires.
Yeah. So yeah, you'll typically have. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, and that's just because of the sheer speeds of these big cars. Those slicks are super, super sensitive, and if you got a hard tire on out there, that even if he was 10 passes in front, it still makes it very, very difficult to get off that line. So
yeah, for sure. And that's in doing Sick Week and discussing things like this with you. I think we'll probably lean more towards that way next year. For our own drag and drive event, just because it makes track prep a lot easier, or we'll dedicate a lane to that. I love hard tire stuff. We had a guy last year that ran like 1020s on a 250 treadwear rated tire. Really fast street car stuff was fun. But I definitely like that. And plus it makes everything go faster throughout the day.
Yeah, when you're not having to stop all the time to drag the track, that keeps racing going. It keeps the motivation high. It keeps people watching. It keeps people engaged, and that's the goal. You remember, I mean, we're building an entire experience here. It's not just about that 1,320 feet.
Yeah, and so that's what we were talking about early on. Sorry, and I completely changed conversation there. Which is what I do. I squirrel a little bit. Everybody knows if they've been on this for a little bit, but if you have 8 hours of physical in the lane racing during the week, that leaves you 100 hours that you're going to fill with the experience.
Mm-hmm.
You got to sleep some, which is probably about 20 hours of that. So that leaves you with 100 hours that you're fixing to fill up with like-minded people. You're going to fill up at super cool stops that you typically wouldn't hit if you were on a vacation trip.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got your whole family loaded up, you're probably not going to stop at the Callie's crank. And
yep, that's right.
Yeah, you're not going to stop there because you don't have the 2 hours. I mean, I spent 2.5 or 3 hours at Don Garlett's. I mean, you're going to spend 2 hours there talking to your buddies, talking to, looking at all the parts, talking with vendors, all that kind of stuff. You're talking with that vendor. You're not going to do that on a regular vacation. And that's why drag and drive stuff is so much more fun. It's like turning a bunch of 15-year-old boys loose with cool hot rods.
With the cool hot rods. That's right. Because none of us, when we were 15, had anything cool like what we've got now.
That's right. That's right.
We drove junk.
Yeah. And hey, back then, I don't know how old you are, but I'll turn 41, and a 13-second streetcar back then was pretty quick.
Yeah. So you're talking early 90s. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. When I first started driving, I was 15 years old. We had a 64 Chevy 2, and it went 9.5 at 154. And that was a 400 small block with a 350 turbo and a 556 Strange in the back on a 10-inch slick. Okay, now that was pretty quick back in the early 90s, and then I had a 72 Chevelle that I drove to school. Now that Chevelle was on its best day in the 15s. I mean, I could get into the 14s if I got out and pushed, but there was nothing that was in between because there was really truly no real true drivability. And I was in high school. I had zero money. I made $80 a week. Yep. You can't buy a bunch of speed parts for $80 a week. So
no, I always joke with folks. I say, we had I made $120 a week back then. Now I can't live on $120 a day.
There you go. Isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth?
Yep. Yeah. All right. So let's talk. We talked about how the events are exploding. The biggest thing I'm trying to figure out how to word this because there's several weekend events that are popping up. We have ours in April. You have the One Guy's Garage with Nathan Shaw, One Guy's Garage Drag Weekend. That's kind of up in your part, typically Michigan, I think.
Right. Yeah. And I know there's a lot of my racers like Scott Kleppinger that goes and participates in that. That one guy Garage has been around a few years, hasn't he?
Yeah, yeah. I think so he missed 1 year because his wife was sick for doing it. And my friend Jonathan Stonecipher, who's the reason that I am into drag and drive stuff, they were going to do a stop here at our home track in Joplin. And so when he canceled, they had the date. So we're like, hey, do you mind if we go ahead and do our own event here? And he said, no, that's fine. And so we did it. And so I think that's probably we've done this will be our 4th year. So that's at least 3 or 4 years for them.
Okay. Well, yeah, as I was mentioning before, as long as an event has had its inaugural event, then we definitely need to get them listed on the dragonDrive.com calendar.
Yes.
So that everybody, because as people are starting to Google this and figure, hey, what is this drag and drive I keep hearing about? Sick the Magazine is doing a fantastic job. We now actually have our own magazine that's dedicated to our own style of drag racing.
Mm-hmm.
That's fantastic. They've got a calendar. We've got a calendar on our dragondrive.com website. And we also have a link on that. It's just a single page site, but it lists all of the drag and drive events by the date. It has the US and Canadian ones. It's also got the overseas ones. And then it's also got a link to Sick the Magazine. So you can if you want to renew your subscription.
Oh, perfect. That's awesome. So yeah, I've been playing on it. You were gracious enough to let us put our drag and drive event on there, and certainly appreciate that. Hope that brings us some more folks because we do it to raise money for the children's shelter. So anytime we can help them get more money, that's always a plus.
Yeah, the only criteria to be listed on that dragondrive.com calendar is they have to have had a first year event. Prior to that, it's just talk. But once they've actually had their first year event, then they are a drag and drive event, and we're going to put them on the calendar.
That's awesome. So do you want to talk a little bit about, you being in the weeds of this, like how many you're seeing of that? How many events, weekend style or 3-day events you think are gonna become normal for the country?
If we don't see 3 to 4 more weekend events pop up this year, I will be very surprised.
Yeah.
And we need more. We need more of those type of events that gets people involved, because it is really difficult to take a week off of vacation, drive 2 or 3 days in each direction to get to the event. That's really, really difficult. But then there's a lot of people out there that want to be able to participate, and these local shows that are 2 or 3 days, and it's only an hour and a half to get there. It makes it so they all can participate. It gets them inspired, and it could be the one thing, because we're under attack by the RPM Act. We need to get more people involved back into motorsports. I think drag and drive is a fantastic way to be able to do it. So we need more weekend events.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. And there's there's a lot of times where I'm on all the big drag and drive pages, and so everybody's like, man, we don't need too many, we don't need it to wash out, we don't need, but I'm like, let's go. Because the thing is, like, with Facebook, we all become a very small community of drag and drive participants and event voyeurs, people wanting to watch that stuff. But when you really think about it, Midwest Drags, Sick Week, Drag Week, and both race weeks, I mean, what's there, 1,500 spots open at the most? So you start kind of figuring the reach of what people would consider taking that event. There's tens of thousands of people, but these 5 or 6 huge events like you guys, I mean, there's 1,500 spots available.
Right.
So why not get involved? And then you could almost. And I'll just say this, I don't know if it's true, but or will work out. But if you went to 3 or 4 small events that you can get into, submit your car to Midwest Drags if you didn't get in on the original entry. Hey, listen, I've competed in these 5 events or these 2 events, and I've completed it, and I ran 950s consistently at all these small events. How do I make sure that I get in if I show up?
Well, that would certainly make a very compelling argument and would move them to the front of the line. There's no doubt about that.
Yep. So that's that's my tip there. I will also say, if you really, really want to do one of these, I mean, people can't, promoters, you guys can't say if you show up, you're going to get in, because you don't know how many people are going to show up. But, at race week, we had, I think there were seven or 12 spots that were available. Sick week had 9 spots that were available. I mean, they did 341 out of the 350. So if you're going to do it and you're going to talk about it, I mean, get one on your vacation list and go do it.
Absolutely. If you want to be involved, you got to get involved.
Yes.
And the thing is, it's not lack of cars on out there. I mean, if you want a really good example, about 40% of the participants there at Sick Week were new to the drag and drive market. Dave Teresi, he's out of Long Island. He drives that yellow Nova, and his daughter Anna Lee was the one who won the roadkill car that Freiberger and Finnegan raced in. Right? She's the one. She was the girl. She's 14 years old, so she's got a couple more years, but she's no doubt got some ideas for it. Well, when Dave Teresi left Sick Week, all of his buddies back there in New York were watching the live feed. When he got back and they started talking about the Midwest drags, Dave Teresi specifically called me up and he said, I've got 3 850 cars that won in. Now that's 3 brand new fast cars that have been around for a long time. But this is after 18 years since the very first 2005, they're now getting inspired to come on out. There's not a shortage of fast cars. It's just getting our message of, if you want to have a killer time with some like-minded people and you like driving your car, you might want to take a serious look at drag and drive.
Yeah, I don't think people understand the joy that becomes those events, because listen, you're in parking lots, you're in gas stations, you're in stores, you're in restaurants. Everything you do for a week, there are race car friends everywhere, every time. And there's nothing cooler than that.
100%. But another thing to consider too for some of the new people, because there's the kind of a concern that I hear. One of the number one concerns I hear from them is, well, how many laps am I going to be able to make, or how many passes am I going to be able to make? I would shoehorn that concern for a little while, because here's the reality of the week. This is a week-long event, but you only get it in 24-hour blocks, because if you're not at the track and turning in your time slips before the lanes close, then you're a DNF. You're out. Okay. So yes, it's a week-long event, but you only get 24 hours at a time, and you get certain luxuries that you, depending on how well you're doing, you get to exercise those luxuries or not. And one of the first one, if you're running behind the 8 ball, one of the first ones to go is food. You're not going to be able to sit down at Red Lobster for an hour and a half and have a nice meal at night. What you're going to be doing is you're going to be eating a hot dog out of a gas station, and you're going to justify it because you just ate for $2. That's the first luxury that's going to go. The second luxury, sleep. You're going to lose sleep because you got to be able to make up that time. If you have to lay underneath your car at 3 o'clock in the morning, that comes first, or else you're out. So when you hear people like they say this is very much an endurance or an Ironman type of a competition, it absolutely is, because we are looking for the strongest car, but we're also looking for the strongest minded individuals that have a tremendous amount of self-discipline to put themselves through this.
Yeah. It's not a Saturday at the track where even if you do drive your car to the track and make passes and go home, it's nothing like that. I mean, because a lot of times, would you say a typical Saturday or Sunday at the track, there's 100, 120 cars, 150 maybe?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So now you're fixing to double that, and you've got to swap your car over and get it ready, and you have just driven it 150 to 400 miles. You've been in your car for 6 hours before. Do you guys race at night, or are you like a morning racer?
The format of the Midwest Drag is that the track goes hot at 8 o'clock in the morning, Tuesday through Thursday. And then the new format change for this year, and you can thank Rick Johnson for this. He was the advocate for this because of better racer safety. But we don't start racing on Friday until 3:30 in the afternoon, and then we race AFCO Racing Shocks Friday Night Lights.
Well, and after doing sick week, it makes sense to do that because then you can go, people are trying to get their very best pass, and then we go right into awards, so that makes sense. The one thing I found compared to race week, which races at night, and sick week, which races in the morning, is how tired I am at 8 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
'cause you get up in the morning, you drive, 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes to the track, and you get the car changed over, you get to the lanes, you make passes, all that adrenaline, and then you get in the car and you drive for, it took us 7 hours one day to go 125 miles because breakdowns, we spent some time at the checkpoints, so, and then you crash at like 2 a.m. because you've been in the parking lot talking for 3 hours.
I know. You see, this is the funny thing. You think when you're in that car and you're stuck in rush hour traffic and you're so damn tired, you think that when I get to that host hotel, I'm going to go inside there and I'm just going to crash. Well, what happens is you get to that host hotel and you see all your buddies on out there talking. So on your way, you spend 2 hours just to go from your car to inside to your room.
Oh, listen, one night I had to stretch once I got to the room because I had carried my backpack that had my editing laptops and all my camera gear and clothes and everything like that. I had carried it for 2 hours, and I told people for an hour and a half of that, I got to go in and get this backpack down. I got to go in and get this backpack down. And you would just move from group of 5 or 6 people to group of 5 or 6 people to and then by the end of the night, there was 30 of us in a huge group out there just talking amongst ourselves. It was great.
Every time, every night, and every time at one of these events. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not any one of the events; it's every single one of them.
Yep. Well, and for folks that are kind of in my age group or maybe a little older, in high school you cruised, right? You cruised this little section of town that you had. It was a lot like that for us. People would come from other hotels and they would park and talk for a little bit, and then they'd leave, and another group would come in who had just finished dinner. Somewhere at Waffle House typically is where you eat at 11:30 at night. So even pulling into the Waffle House parking lot, you end up seeing people that you haven't seen all week.
That is for sure. It's a great time.
It's just amazing. So, all right, let's talk. Let's kind of spin a little bit. I want to know, what your opinions are. You think on the next 5 years of Drag and Drive? Do you think we'll, kind of what the changes are in that? And then obviously we need to get into some of the draganddrive.com. And then obviously we're going to talk about Drag and Drive the phrase.
Yeah. So, the next 5 years, I just see it getting better and better. I see, a lot more events happening overseas as well. I would like to do some stuff working with some of the promoters to be able to cross the pond and do other things with them. I'm just going to leave it at that. But I definitely see this thing not ending anytime soon. I don't see it fizzling out anytime soon. And the reason being is because almost anybody can do it. It doesn't take a massive bank account to be able to do this. So the sky's the limit, really. And I can see that as long as we promoters are working together and we're moving forward, and we always put the best interests of the racers and we focus on the racers' experience, it's going to continue to grow. That's just all there is to it.
Yeah, 100%. And then draganddrive.com. What's the future of that? And I'll just tell you, I think there's so much we can do with that. Maybe even bring in some podcast info on one of them tabs.
Well, we can certainly look into that. The thing is when we came out with our logo, we designed that logo in-house back in 2018, and we threw that tagline on there of Drag and Drive event. We trademarked it back then, and we never really thought that it would go anywhere. We didn't think anything of it. But we were trying to come on up with what is a descriptor of this type of an event, because it's not a drag race and we don't want to be confused as a drag race. And if you try to explain to your buddies what this is and you say it's a drag race, you're going to lose. Some people are going to say, okay, and you're going to lose the other ones because you're just basing it off of what their previous experiences are. So we were trying to come on up with something like that. But now, back in the 90s, we had Street and Strip, which was kind of more towards like the pro street cars, that era. So we wanted something that was unique and to our own. And now it has just taken off, and everybody's using it as a descriptor to describe what it is this thing is that we are doing. And for that, absolutely, I applaud them. And it's starting to go mainstream. I mean, we're seeing it now. It's used in articles on the motortrend.com website. NHRA themselves is talking about what Sick Week did. I think their headline was Sick Week brings drag and drive to Florida, something like that. Wes Buck over there at Dragzine, he's using it in his publication. So what started on off as just being something that was hidden in our logo is actually turned on out to being mainstream. And for that reason, then we registered the URL of draganddrive.com, when we registered in all different kinds of ways, and then just made that as just like a calendar of all of the drag and drive events where they've had the inaugural event. Then they automatically get on that list, and there's hyperlinks there where they can go, where the visitors can go and visit that one unique page, and basically just to be able to help those who might be Googling what is drag and drive.
Oh, yeah, that's a great point. I didn't even think about that. Yeah. I didn't think about that because I live it. I'm like, oh man, I'm trying to figure out all the names.
Yeah. To you and I, it's common knowledge. And, that's kind of the funny thing is that, the things that are in your head, the things that are in my head, we just assume that the other person knows that, but they don't. And as they're starting to read, they read an article out of Dragzine and it says, drag and drive. Well, what's the next thing? What is this drag and drive thing? So if you go onto YouTube, you're going to see a lot of Cletus McFarland stuff. I'll talk about drag and drive. And then, it's just kind of the next evolution of getting information out there.
Yeah, I love it. It's a great page because, even, I mean, just looking at it literally right now, I see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 on here that are just in the States. And then you've got, several that are overseas, one in March, one in July. And that's just what we know of right now, that's
what we know of right now. That's exactly what I was going to say. I mean, I don't have that one guy's garage listed on there. I need to find out who puts that thing on there and get him listed.
Yeah, I'll bring you guys together. It's Nathan Shaw. I'll send a message that with both of you guys on there. Not that I know him very well, but him and I've talked a few times because I'd love to do that. Just because, again, like we talked earlier, it gives me a chance to hit new tracks that I would never have gone to.
Right.
That's awesome. Well, what do we want to leave folks with? I know you are a very busy guy, and I don't want to take time that we can't. And I would love to have you back on to say that, just because there's so many stories you have. I mean, we were both at Sick Week. I didn't even get a chance to meet you there. And we got to talk about all your experiences within the drag and drive events and things like that. So, but for this one, what do you want to leave folks with for the drag and drive culture and somebody that maybe hasn't done one yet?
You've got to give it a try. I mean, you absolutely do. It is a commitment to come on out for 1 week. So I would strongly encourage you to find a local one or start a local one. And if the best way to be able to do it, if you're curious as to how to do it, get a charity involved. Because then you'll get a bunch of volunteers that'll be able to help you on out. It doesn't have to be a big old national display. Just do something to be able to get involved and get some people to participate and come on out, because the future of our motorsports is in jeopardy. And Chad Reynolds is he's one of the biggest advocates right now. He's always, every time he's on the microphone, he's always talking about we got to get more engaged and fight this thing. I really strongly do believe, because how many people are being inspired with this, how many new people are coming on out, that this could be a good opportunity for us to be able to have a lot of fun and protect our fun.
Yes, certainly. Thank you so much. That's a great way I think it's probably a great way to end this one. I can't say thank you enough for being on today. I mean, literally, we started talking a few days ago. You were nice enough to jump on and let us record for 45 minutes, and I certainly appreciate that. I can't imagine the hours and hours and hours of stories you have, though.
Well, it's quite a few, but I'll tell you, there's the sponsors make it possible. The promoter makes it a reality, but the racers, they're the ones that make it memorable. So Summit Racing, be sure to buy all your speed parts from Summit Racing. Mickey Thompson is a fantastic, Mickey Thompson was one of the first promoters back in Lions Drag Strip. And if you Google or YouTube Mickey Thompson historical videos, you'll actually see when they started racing there at Lions Drag Strip, Mickey was so revolutionary. He called on the Saturday night races, the news team, and they did live news reports at Lions Drag Strip. That's how revolutionary he was. And I've got Mickey Thompson as my presenting sponsor. Okay.
That's awesome.
So another story about full circle, right? Still involved in promoting. So Mickey Thompson, even though he's not with us anymore, his company is continuing to support the next row of upcoming promoters. We got Molly Motorsports, we've got the Gear Vendors live feed, we've got Mosier Engineering, we've got just a tremendous amount of fantastic sponsors that are going to be with us this year.
Oh, that's great, man. Okay, well, 45 minutes. I'm going to end it there, guys. Thank you so much for listening. I'll pop into the outro now.
Thank you.